Hi, thanks for joining me and welcome back to the channel. So in common with last week's video, what we're going to be talking about today are two releases from Analogue Productions, the Bob Marley and the Wailers Exodus Ultra Tape and the Bob Marley and the Wailers Exodus UHQR 45 RPM version. And again, in common with what we did last week, I'm going to be comparing these with the 33 RPM UHQR of Exodus, which was released a couple of years ago in very limited quantities and sold out straight away. And I'm going to be comparing it to my original Exodus, but my original Exodus isn't a regular one, as we can see here. This is a UK original first issue test pressing, and it's in absolutely excellent, if not near mint condition. I've had this about 25 years. You'll notice here this has got writing on it, and they've got the A and the B side muddled up. I think that actually makes it kind of slightly cooler in a way. Matrix number on this is I-1 and then a space ILPS, another space 9498 space A-2. Okay, so I have featured this before in a review up here when I compared this to the original 33 RPM UHQR. Okay, so on that instance they were pretty close, and I did have a different cartridge and tone arm in the system and phono stage. In fact, at that point in time I was actually borrowing a DS Audio Grandmaster cartridge and EQ, which is like sort of £50,000 worth of cartridge and phono stage, way out of my league, but interesting to borrow, and it gave a very interesting perspective. So I'm back to my sort of more normal setup at the moment. But anyway, let me just run straight into the listening tests, if you like. So we'll start off with the white label test pressing, okay? We queued it up, put it on, and I'll just run through the sort of the immediate and obvious sort of facets of the experience. So the first thing is this vinyl is not silent, and it's not horribly noisy. It's just about average, but the recording itself, it's so full of light and air and dynamism. The percussion sort of you've typically got sort of more metal percussion, like sort of cymbals, triangles and things on the left hand channel, and sort of wooden shakers and sticks and things on the right. But it does vary from track to track. Sometimes that's sort of the reggae sort of chink 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 kind of rhythm guitar. Sometimes that's on the left, more often than not on the left, but sometimes it's on the right. And then you've got lead guitars, very sort of wah-wah kind of just almost full-on rocky kind of lead guitar. That's more often than not in the sort of the rear of the right channel, but these things do mix around. What's constant is the sort of the bass, and Bob's voice are sort of pretty much dead center. But on this album, one of the main traits, I think, which you'll find, which you kind of have to adjust for a little, is Bob's voice is quite far back in the soundstage. I mean, when I say quite far back, almost out the back, sort of in line, if you like, with the backing vocals, whether they're male backing vocals or the girls. But anyway, it's a superb album, full of phenomenal tracks. But anyway, this is this test pressing is incredible sounding. I've looked on Discogs, and I think there's one ever been sold, and it went for £200. That was a few years ago, so I think this is probably £300 or £400 worth at least. And in this, it is in pretty much mint condition. You can see it didn't cost that. This was actually a gift from a friend. Thanks very much, Mark. about 25 years ago. So yeah, one of those superb presents that you get every now and then. But anyway, I think realistically, this is probably the most expensive of the four things we're listening to, maybe equivalent to the Ultra Tape. But anyway, it's a phenomenal thing. It's a phenomenal soundstage. Do note Bob is at the back of it, and the bass is very full and heavy. Okay, now let's get on to the 33 RPM UHQR, which, as I say, I have reviewed previously, and I'll put a link down below to that earlier review. And as I say, in that, you know, basically I've got a different system now in terms of phono stage, cartridge and tone arm, which is going to make a heck of a difference to the analog front end, to the vinyl front end. So it might be interesting to look at both reviews and see how these things affect things, because they affect things a lot. Okay, but anyway, I'd say that the overall outcome is similar, although I think there's no question that this does actually beat the test pressing. Okay, the test pressing's kind of got a slightly more homogeneous sound stage front to back. I think it's overall more compressed, which kind of gives a slightly more sort of punch or evenness to the sound, so to speak. Whereas this is definitely more open, a little bit more expression, a little bit more air, more clarity, more detail, and basically, I would say a better listen than the test pressing. Now, you've got to consider how rare this is, how unobtainable, and even if you find a good one, how much you've got to pay for it. To be able to, this cost, I think it was $125 when I bought it. They are more expensive now, they've become highly collectible, but you should get one for, I don't know, a couple of hundred easily, I would have thought. And very, 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 very well worth it. Okay, so I think this is probably going to be the real interest point for most people in this video, and that is, how does the 45 RPM UHQR compare with the 33? Now, this was obviously the more, probably the most interesting thing to me as well. Now, is this better than the 33 RPM UHQR? And the simple answer is yes. And, the next thing is, how is it better? Well, everything is slightly more open, slightly more textured, slightly more layered, slightly more expressive. There's sort of keyboards on the right channel, I noticed at many a point, where you can just hear the texture and sort of colour of those keyboards. These would be old analog synths, or an organ, or even an electric piano. All of these are used on the album, I'm quite sure, and they just have more colour and character. The bass is slightly deeper, I would say. The overall dynamic openness, the sort of, from the silent to the loud bits is slightly greater on the 45 over the 33. The backing vocals, the I3s, they're more open, they're more sweet, they're more expressive. There's some beautiful bits of male backing vocal, which it's quite hard to hear it, on a mediocre or even an average or even a normal good pressing, and some bits where they're kind of humming along, and things like that are pulled out better. The guitars, there's at least two guitars on here, at many points. You've got that sort of traditional reggae kind of chink, chink, chink kind of rhythm guitar, which I kind of always think it sounds a bit Telecastery. I don't know whether they do use Telecasters or not, but it's kind of that chink, chink kind of sound. And that sound is obviously mostly made up of that, but played in perfect time with someone doing the same chink, chink, chink on a piano, or electric piano probably. But the texture of those guitars, and particularly the sort of the more lead guitar, which is your typical sort of more rock wailing lead solos, just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But all around it is again, like with Rastaman Vibration, the 45 is very similar to the 33, but it's more of everything. And I'm going to get onto numbers later, like I did last week, just to sort of try and express the magnitude of the difference between these, okay? But generally speaking, yeah, the 45 beats the 33. Hands down, unquestionably, by how much? I would say slightly more than the amount of improvement with Rastaman Vibration between the 33 and the 45, okay? And now the final sound comparison is between the 45 RPM UHQR and the Ultra Tape. Now, anyone who's a regular viewer of the channel will not be surprised to know that the Ultra Tape beats it. And I would be monumentally surprised if it didn't, because what the Ultra Tape is, as all Ultra Tapes are, is a one-to-one copy of the master. Let me just get this. I'll just get one of these two reels out. Get the back one out. And you know, you've got a studio-made copy from the original master that was used to make the UHQRs. A one-to-one copy is made, you know, in the mastering studio, and then from that they run off, I think, 6 or 10 copies at a time. Again, you know, these are copy masters. These, you know, they are so close. There's nothing that you can do in vinyl cutting that could equal how close these are to the actual master. They are superb. And of course you get 2 reels to make up the album. Now, when you go from the 45 RPM to the Ultra Tape, there's a few things that are really fundamentally improved. And I want to try and give you just the essence of the difference in sound, because most of you, I fully appreciate, are looking at this video thinking, do I need to get the 45 UHQR, because that's the only one available at the moment, or if you've already got the 33, do I want to get it as well? Do I want to sell my 33? And you can get decent money for it, I can tell you that, and buy the 45. Some of you, just a few, I know, will have the ability to play tapes. So when you put this on, right from the word go, there's more weight and there's more body, and then there's more solidity to every element in the sound stage. There's more depth to that sound stage. There's more air around everything, and specifically including Bob. But when I say there's more air, it's not like a sort of an absence of anything clarity, and you know, sort of digital remastering and digital manipulation can really clear up that space between things, and make things sound sort of like super holographic almost. And it isn't that. What this is the reality of the recording is maintained, if you like. So you get the air around Bob. If you imagine its aura as that sort of, you know, goes from Bob to aura to space, you know, you get that feeling of the air around him. You get the way it fades out and then fades into the next element in the soundstage, whether that's the backing vocals or the guitar or a drum or anything like that. It's the tiniest subtle micro details that aren't being manipulated, aren't being lost, and aren't being smeared or obliterated. So Bob's voice just sounds more whole, more real, more even. You know, that the guitar's more sort of like ching, the little sort of wah wah lead guitar in the background is just more, you know, more rocking. The keyboards, all those layers of the whether it's an organ or piano or other synths, the layers, the shapes, the kind of the texture of each instrument is just plain more real. There's a few times where the drummers, I don't know whether it's a timpani or whatever, but he sort of hits a, you've got your kick drum, but he hits a tom, some sort of tom, that's got a big resonance shape and sound and tone to it, really deep. And as you go up in quality from the original test pressing to the 33 RPM UHQR to the 45 RPM UHQR to the ultra tape, each step that just gets more free, more kind of it fills the space and it defines the space of the recording. It's just absolutely wonderful. It really, really, really is. So I've kind of covered a brief sort of description of each of the sounds. I will point out I've probably got 10 pages of notes here, because I will be doing a written review of this for the Reel to Reel Rambler, and again I'll put a link to that down in the description, but it might not be for a few days because I've got to write it up and edit it yet, okay? But that's specifically of the ultra tape. But anyway, let's go back to giving these a score like we did with Rastaman Vibration, okay? Now, I have got an extremely gorgeous, extremely desirable, extremely wonderful, original UK Island Records manufacturing test pressing here, okay? In near mint condition. And this is not just like my 1980 repressing of Rastaman. This is exceptional. I've had this for about 25 years plus, and it's been one of those records that I pull out when I get hi-fi industry visitors round, or just, huge Bob Marley fans, and I just blow their socks off. I'm going to give this 80%, okay? 80%. It sounds a lot better than last week's Rastaman Vibration original. But I will say, part of this review was quite difficult because I've listened to Rastaman so many times over the last couple of weeks, and as I say, it is genuinely probably now my favourite Bob Marley album. So it's a more natural, more simple, more sort of acoustic, if you like, recording in the first place than Exodus. So let's give 80% to the test pressing. I'm going to give 85% to the 33 RPM UHQR, okay? So it's better. It's not massively better. It's more different than massively better, but don't let that sort of fool you into thinking that, oh, it's not actually better. It is better, but it's, it doesn't blow the test pressing away. It's just, yeah, that is better. It's more open, it's clearer, slightly more dynamic, far quieter background, more texture, and more expression, if you like. So, all wholly good improvements. Okay, so we've got 80, 85. Now, the 45 RPM UHQR, I'm going to give this 90 because it is better than the 33 UHQR, whereas the 33 UHQR and the test pressing were, the UHQR was better, but they were different. These are almost the same rather than being different, but the 45 is better, and it's quite understandable. It's quite obvious. It's just that increased resolution of cutting at a higher speed. Okay, you've got far more space to fit the grooves onto the record, and the stylus is travelling through those grooves, at a considerably faster speed. So it's a bit like the difference between 7.5 IPS and 15 IPS tape. It's just better. There's no two ways about it. Okay, so we've got 80 for the test pressing, 85, 90. And where does that leave the tape? I'm going to give it, because it's the best, it is now the new reference, I'm going to give it 100. Okay? All those things, like the fact I said that Bob's voice is right at the back of the soundstage. As we go up in the quality levels, he's sort of lifted out of muffledness. You know, there's on the test pressing, it's almost a bit like he's like that right at the back of the soundstage, whereas it opens up with the 33 UHQR. It opens up even more with that. With this, it's just nothing seems forced. It just makes absolute obvious sense. One little thing I want to mention is right at the end of the title track Exodus, as they're fading out, you've got sort of repeating kind of chant where Bob goes move, and then you've got this, which is I'm sure that's a Peter Frampton bloody voice box guitar thingy. I don't know, but it sounds a bit like that. But it's this sort of repeating chant. And then as it gets right towards the end, then they've obviously got like a tape echo, Roland tape echo or something like that running on it. And there's an echo comes in, and then they fade out. What's really cool is, and as these go up in the quality, you hear this more and more and more and more, obviously. And on this one, you can hear that, they've got this echo, and then they fade it out, and they fade it back in. So you got like, moo, what. And it's just, you're intimately there. It really is like you're sat there at the control desk in the studio, the musician's right in front of you, and you're listening to the main monitors of the actual performance or the mix going down. It's it's stunning. And at the end of the day, when you're playing one of these master copies, that's exactly what you are listening to, really. So I think from my reference, which is an absolutely stunning thing, is now been knocked into 4th place. And that's quite significant, because for 25 years, this was unassailable, okay? Well, so 25 years I've had it, it was unassailable. The 45 RPM UHQR does, not by a massive margin, but it's a very tangible, you can hear it. You'd be deaf not to be able to hear the difference and the improvement. So, the 45 UHQR is notably better than the 33 UHQR. And of course, no great surprise, the tape is the ultimate reference, okay? And as with last week, I'm going to give these a mark out of 10. I forget my test pressing, because you can't buy one anymore. I will include this because I suspect a few of these will become second-hand, appear on the second-hand market, because people are going to be buying the 45 and moving these on. But honestly, the 2 UHQRs and the Ultra Tape, all from Analogue Productions, all 10 out of 10. It's the same as last week's result. These are stunning. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks very, very much for watching. And I will see you all again soon. Bye for now. Bye.